Cat Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 3, Chapter 1. Izuku didn't remember much of the next few days. The hero went out sometimes, probably to patrol, and Izuku curled up on the couch until he came home. He brought Izuku to the vet, and his burns were treated again and rewrapped, and they gave him shots. He tried to protest at that, since he wasn't actually a cat, but they did it anyways. He tried a few times to change back to human, but he almost didn't want to. He lost everything. What was the point? He might as well live his life as this man's cat. It was already much calmer than his life before. It never really worked, anyways. When he tried, cat bowls replaced the dishes he ate out of, and that was when it hit him. He was being treated like a cat. He was eating from bowls on the floor like an actual animal. And, okay, he was stuck like this, and he kind of liked being a cat, but he had standards. When the man that Izuku had mentally named Kudo because of all of his black clothing next tried to feed him, Izuku jumped onto the kitchen chair, placed his front paws on the edge of the table, and yowled. Kuro blinked at him. His face expression never changed much, but Izuku was learning to read what little tells there were. You want to eat at the table? A statement, not a question. Izuku meowed again. Kudo narrowed his eyes and moved the dish to the table. Izuku shoved his face in the bowl. He missed actual people food, but his appetite had been hit or miss all week anyways, so he hadn't cared what he was eating. Now that he was somewhat aware again, he kind of cared. Although, looking at what Kudo consistently made for himself, Izuku wasn't sure people food was all that much better. He might be better off with the cat food. You're the weirdest cat I've ever seen, Kudo said fondly, scratching him between his ears again. Izuku had discovered he loved when Kudo did that. He couldn't help but lean into his hand whenever he did it. Kudo's phone rang, and he pulled his hand away to answer. What? No, I'm not. Hisashi, listen to me. Don't you dare. You hung up on me again. Damn it. Izuku tilted his head. Kudo met his eyes and sighed. I apologize in advance for the man you're about to meet. I haven't told him yet I took you in. He probably didn't mean to terrify Izuku with that statement, but fear raced down his spine anyways. When a knock came a few minutes later, Izuku bolted under the couch. Kudo sighed and yanked the door open. A very loud man entered. Shouta, man, it's been ages. So Kudo's real name was Shouta. Izuku filed that information away. Hisashi, you did not need to come over. Yes I did. Were you going to do anything for your birthday otherwise? No, because that's how I want to spend it. You always say that, Sashi said. Izuku peered out from under the couch to watch him. He was starting to think Shouta's warning was about how energetic Hisashi was, not because Hisashi would hurt him or anything. Hisashi set some plastic bags down at the table. Is that cat food? Shouta grunted. You scared him. He's hiding. What? No, I'm sorry. Kitty, please come out. He spun around the whole apartment. Looking so carefasted, Izuku actually felt bad for initially hiding. I found him on the streets. Don't get your hopes up. Shouta said. Aw, poor kitty. He made clicking noises with his tongue. Izuku slowly came out from under the couch. Hisashi's gaze zeroed in on him immediately. Are cats normally green? This one is, Shouta said. He leaned back against the counter, watching Izuku. That's unusual. That is the least unusual thing about this cat. Is that why you kept him? Hisashi said. He crouched on the floor and held a hand out, waiting for Izuku to come to him. Izuku closed the distance, but he did not get within petting range. Hisashi pouted. I needed somebody, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. Shouta said. You big softy. Hisashi grinned. He stood up and rummaged in his bags that he brought, revealing takeout containers. Oh, real people food. Izuku was so down for that. He trolleyed over to the table and jumped onto a chair, and then onto the table itself. Hisashi laughed and scratched him under the chin. Now you'll be my best friend, huh? If it meant real food, Izuku would be whatever this guy wanted him to be. You're not feeding him that, Shouta stated. You'll make him sick, and I'll have to clean it. Izuku meowed his disagreement and lunged for the food. Hisashi caught him around the middle. Whoa there, little guy. He set him back on the floor. Your dad said no. Izuku yelled. This was not his real dad, and jumped up on the table again. Again, they grabbed him and tossed him onto the floor. Sorry, wait, what's his name? Shouta shrugged. I haven't named him yet. He pretty much clings to me whenever I'm home. Well, that won't do, Hisashi said. Izuku jumped onto the table. Shouta grabbed him this time and held him. Ramen, because that's what he's trying to steal. Hisashi snorted, while Izuku let out a cry of protest. He was not answering to ramen, and they couldn't make him. Hisashi opened one of the containers and fished out a piece of pork, holding it up for Izuku. One piece won't kill him. Here you go. Ramen. Okay, fine. Apparently they could make him. He scratched the pork. Hisashi became a regular visitor after that. He brought over cat toys, even a cat tree one of his neighbors was giving away, and always slipped real meat to Izuku when Shouta wasn't looking. Shouta slipped Izuku plenty of food too, when Hisashi wasn't there. There was still too much actual cat food in Izuku's diet for his taste, but it was that or starve right now, until he figured out how to change back. He never saw himself on the news again, and the new life was so bizarre and dreamlike, he kept forgetting to try and change back. It wasn't a bad life either. Shouta and Hisashi spoiled him as a cat. He didn't have to go to school, which was great at first, but he started to miss it after a while. He genuinely liked learning, and there wasn't much to do as a cat, especially when Shouta was out. At least Shouta didn't mind Izuku clinging to him. He just needed the company sometimes. He was starting to think he'd be stuck as a cat forever, and it was surprisingly lonely. He missed learning about heroes and studying quirks. He missed playing with Kacchan. Even if Kacchan was kind of mean sometimes, Shouta was great. He let Izuku sit on his shoulder whenever he was home, and he didn't mind Izuku curling up in his bed when he slept. Sometimes, he slept so deeply, Izuku would curl up to his chest to feel the rise and fall of his chest. He was terrified he'd slip away without Izuku noticing, and he'll lose him, just like he lost his mother. It was a quiet life, for the most part, except for when Hisashi was around. He was pretty loud. But he'd played with Izuku almost the entire time he was over, so Izuku didn't mind so much. He found himself looking forward to those days. Izuku didn't realize how much time was passing until Hisashi came over for New Year's Eve. The fire had been the start of November. He'd been with Shouta for 2 months. He'd been stuck as a cat for 2 months. He hid under the couch for most of the evening, moping. Hisashi later bribed him out with some sushi, and then held him to it when he and Shouta watched a movie on the couch. What's got you so down today, huh? Hisashi asked, scratching behind Izuku's ears. He's been like that all day, Shouta said, just a touch of concern in his voice. Didn't even eat his breakfast. Izuku hasn't been able to bring himself to stomach the cat food. Shouta had kept his bowl on the table since the first time, and Izuku was fine with the cat food most of the time. Some days, though, when he just really wanted to be human again, he couldn't do it. Aw, ramen, what's the matter? You holding out for some good snacks later? Hisashi asked, poking his stomach. Izuku swatted at him and squirmed out of his grip, crossing the couch to sit in Shota's lap instead. Shouta huffed and ran a hand over his back. I think he just wants some space today. You really did find a weird cat, Hisashi commented. Oh, it's almost midnight. Please don't be loud, Shouta grumbled. Hisashi giggled and switched off the movie, flipping the channel until we reached the news. You know I can't promise that. You're lucky I agreed to a quiet night in. Sashi? Shouta? Sashi? Shouta? Izuku sat up and looked between the two. He wasn't sure what they were talking about, or why Sashi had a smug grin on his face. Shouta usually looked exhausted, so it was kind of tell his exact feeling about this. The countdown began. Hisashi lightly stomped his feet, beating his hands on his knees with each number. Shouta sighed and covered Izuku's ears. 1. Happy New Year's! Izuku jumped when actual physical vibrations came out of Hisashi's mouth, knocking over the glass on the coffee table. But it abruptly cut off, midway, and Hisashi gave a sheepish look to Shouta. Izuku looked up just in time to see Shota's eyes go from red back to black, and for his hair to lower back down. It took a few moments for things to process in Izuku's mind. He hadn't known either man's quirk before that evening. They hadn't needed to use them in the apartment before. Hisashi was clearly voice-based, and Shouta had stopped it. Somehow. His quirk stopped Hisashi's. He could stop others' quirks. Shouta could stop other people's quirks. Izuku jumped up and whirled around, placing his front paws on Shota's chest and yowling in his face. Shouta retreated back while Hisashi laughed. Yes, he didn't like that. Strange that he thinks yours is the scarier one. Sorry, Ramen, Shouta said, gently prying Izuku loose and placing him on his lap. I'll only use my quirk when that one forgets not to use his. Izuku shook his head and leapt up again, tapping Shota's face with a paw. He kept meowing, trying to tell them in a language they didn't understand that Shota's quirk was exactly what he wanted. Shouta could turn his off, and Izuku could be human again. Except they didn't understand him. And why would Shouta use his quirk on a cat? Jeez, he's really worked up. Hisashi said. Calm down, Ramen. It's okay now. I won't use my quirk again. Promise. And then Shouta won't use his. That wasn't what he was trying to say. He yelled again and continued to paw at Shota's face. If he could just even get him to use it accidentally, that would be enough. Hey, Ramen, that's enough. Cut it out. Shouta said, his voice sharp. He was usually pretty even-tempered, and the sudden switch sent Izuku running. Yelling meant bad things. He didn't want to make Shouta mad. Then the man might kick him out. He hid under the bed, only emerging after Hisashi left and Shouta crouched down to apologize. Dad had never apologized, so Izuku forced himself out. The bed was more comfortable anyways. Ooh, okay, hold up. Okay. New Year's Eve, 2 months. I want to talk about that last part where Izuku ran off as soon as Shouta even showed any signs of being angered or angry and stuff. And yeah, that's a trauma response. An obviously very big one that most people think of. Things that most people wouldn't think of could be a trauma response would, be stomping. Well, I guess that would be a little more. I would have to think of one. One can't come to mind. But, it has to be, really super specific. Like, if Izuku's dad sat in a certain position and Shouta gets seated or sits in that certain position as well, it could trigger a whole attack and stuff. I'm not saying that Izuku has PTSD or some shit, but he's a traumatized kid who probably has had to tiptoe around. I mean, him being quiet, his quirk probably helps him be on the quieter side, but even without a quirk, kids who come from abusive households tend to be really quiet. They tend to be able to tiptoe. They tend to be able to go unnoticed. And that's for a reason. Unfortunately, I can also go unnoticed, but that's not because I come from an abusive household. No. I just had a friend whom I had to go unnoticed in different aspects. So I'm not quiet when I walk around my house, but I'm quiet in other aspects. Or if a friend's really angry at me, I try my hardest to make it up to them because I feel like it's my fault. Even if they're not angry at me and they're angry at something else, I feel as though I'm the one who needs to fix it, and that's my trauma response. But trauma responses are things that could come up weirdly. It could be super weird. It could be something so random, like someone having pink hair. Yeah, that shit triggers me sometimes. But it's weird shit like that really triggers people and stuff like that is weird and, out of the nowhere, kind of thing. But yeah, shit like that really affects people sometimes. And in this case, we could tell that Izuku really didn't like that yelling. Although I did like that last part where Aizawa apologized and Izuku was like, oh, my dad never apologized. Also, Hisashi calling Izuku dad. Oh my god. Also, we got Hisashi introduced. Yes, technically speaking, Hisashi and Aizawa are not together because it's not tagged. But I'm gonna think that they're together because I said so. Because I said so. Okay, anyways. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.